Hey guys, tonight we slip into the flour-dusted world of 19th century Parisian bakers, where you're about to craft the perfect croissant. Picture yourself in a creaky attic above a bustling bakery, the air thick with the scent of yeast and wood smoke. It's 4 a.m., and Paris is still asleep, but you're already stirring, your breath visible in the chilly dawn. Outside, horse carts clatter on cobblestones, and gas lamps flicker like tired stars. You're not just making bread, you're chasing a buttery, flaky dream that will define breakfast for centuries. Fair warning, you probably won't survive the backbreaking hours or the finicky dough. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in Paris, 1840, and your day starts in this dim attic, your home as an apprentice baker. The room is barely big enough for a straw mattress and a wobbly table, but it's yours, tucked above the bakery's chaos. You roll out of bed, your joints stiff from yesterday's kneading. The floorboards groan as you pull on a linen shirt, already dusted with flour from last week's work. Downstairs, the bakery is a maze of wooden benches and sacks of grain, the air warm from ovens that never fully cool. You're not just any baker, you're part of a revolution. Croissants, those golden crescents, are starting to catch on, but they're not yet the icon they'll become. Your master, a grizzled baker named Monsieur Lefebvre, barks orders in a thick Parisian accent, his hands scarred from decades of hot ovens. He's teaching you the art of puff pastry, a delicate dance of dough and butter that's more alchemy than cooking. The mainstream fact here is that Paris in the mid-19th century was a hub of culinary innovation. Bakers were experimenting with techniques borrowed from across Europe, and the croissant was emerging as a symbol of sophistication. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some bakers swore by singing to their dough, claiming the vibrations helped it rise better. No one's proved it, but you try it, humming a soft chanson as you mix flour and water. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or a clever way to keep apprentices awake during long shifts. You grab a wooden bowl, its edges worn smooth by years of use, and pour in water from a clay jug. The flour is coarse, speckled with tiny bran flecks, and it sticks to your fingers like stubborn snow. You mix slowly, feeling the dough come alive under your palms, sticky at first, then elastic. It's meditative. But don't get too cozy. Lefebvre is watching, and he'll rap your knuckles if you slack off. You're not alone in this attic life. Other apprentices, mostly teenage boys from the countryside, share the space, their snores still echoing from last night. One, a lanky kid named Pierre, mutters about quitting for a butcher's job. Less flour in his hair, he says. You laugh, but quietly. Lefebvre doesn't tolerate chatter. The bakery's rhythm is relentless. Mix, knead, rest, repeat. You're learning the croissant's secret, though layers. It's all about folding dough over butter, again and again, to create those airy flakes. But in 1840, it's still a niche treat, served in fancy cafes. Not every corner boulangerie. You imagine the rich Parisians who'll eat your work, sipping coffee while you're still scrubbing pots. Funny thing is, you're half asleep yourself, the dough's rhythm lulling you like a lullaby. Don't doze off yet. There's a long day ahead, and the croissant story is just beginning. You're up before the roosters, trudging downstairs in the pre-dawn chill of 1840 Paris, your apron already dusted with flour from yesterday. The bakery is a shadowy beast, its ovens glowing faintly, casting long fingers of light across the wooden benches. You're an apprentice, which means you're the first to start and the last to leave. Kneading dough while the city dreams. Your hands ache from last night's work. But there's no time to complain. Monsieur Lefebvre is already shouting for you to move faster. The croissant, that flaky crescent you're chasing, demands precision. And today you are learning the grind of a baker's life. It's less glamorous than you hoped, more like wrestling a sticky, living thing than crafting art. You grab a mound of dough. It's cool weighed familiar now, and slam it onto the bench, the thump echoing in the quiet. The mainstream fact is that 19th century Parisian bakers worked brutal hours, often starting at 2 a.m. to have bread ready for dawn customers. Your shift is no exception. You're kneading by candlelight, the wax dripping onto the floor like tiny, defiant stars. Here's the quirky bit. Some bakers believe the moon's phases affected dough rising, so you glance out the window, checking if tonight's gibbous moon is on your side. Historians still argue whether this was folklore or if bakers noticed real changes in humidity. You don't care much. You're too busy pounding the dough, your arms burning as it resists, then yields. The rhythm is hypnotic, almost soothing, like a heartbeat you can control. You sprinkle more flour, watching it drift like snow, coating your hands in the bench. Lefebvre looms nearby, his eyes sharp despite the hour. He's a master of the craft, but his temper is as hot as the ovens. More elbow, less dreaming. He snaps, and you stifle a grin. You imagine telling him you're practicing for the croissant, not just plain bread, but that'd earn you a cuff to the ear. The croissant's trick, he's taught you, is patience, kneading just enough to build strength without overworking the dough. You press and fold, feeling the texture shift, imagining the layers that'll come later. Outside, a stray dog barks, and you hear the first milk carts rattling by. Paris is waking, but you're already deep in the grind. Your world a haze of flour and sweat. You pause to wipe your brow, leaving a streak of white across your forehead. Baker's war paint, Pierre calls it, and you both chuckle. The other apprentices are stirring now, yawning as they haul water or stack firewood. One, a wiry kid named Julien, brags about sneaking a sip of the master's wine last night. You roll your eyes. Julien's tales are taller than the Eiffel Tower, which, by the way, won't exist for decades. The dough's ready to rest now, and you cover it with a damp cloth, its yeasty smell filling the air. You're learning that baking is timing, instinct, and a bit of luck. The croissant's future depends on this dough, and you're starting to feel its weight, not just in your hands, but in your bones. For now, you let it rest, stealing a moment to dream of the golden flakes you'll create. You're still in the flour-dusted bakery, the dough resting under its cloth like a sleeping child, while you lean against a bench, catching your breath. It's 1840 Paris, and the croissant is your obsession, but its story isn't purely French. You are about to uncover its roots, and they stretch all the way to Vienna, a city of waltzes and rivalries. Monsieur Lefebvre, your gruff master, drops a hint as he passes, muttering about those Austrians and their crescent-shaped bread. You perk up, curious, as he tosses you a rag to wipe down the benches. The croissant, it turns out, has a tangled past, and you're piecing it together like a sleepy detective, your mind half lost in the yeasty haze of the bakery. The mainstream fact is that the croissant's ancestor, the Kipferl, was born in Vienna, possibly as early as the 17th century. It was a crescent-shaped pastry, less flaky than today's croissant, but loved by Austrian nobles. Here's the quirky tidbit. Legend claims the Kipferl celebrated Vienna's 1683 victory over the Ottoman Empire, its shape mimicking the Turkish crescent flag. You smirk, imagining bakers mocking their enemies with buttery dough. Talk about a tasty flex. Historians still argue whether this tale is true or just a romantic yarn spun to sell pastries. You don't care much for the debate. You're more interested in how this Austrian treat landed in Paris, sparking a culinary feud. You picture Vienna's grand cafes, where Kipferl were served with coffee, while Paris was still munching crusty baguettes. The story goes that Austrian bakers, maybe even a noblewoman named Marie Antoinette, brought the Kipferl to France in the late 18th century. By 1840, Parisian bakers like Lefebvre were tweaking it, adding more butter and finesse to create the croissant. You try asking Lefebvre for details, but he just grunts. Less talk, more work. Typical. You grab a broom, sweeping flour off a floor, and imagine the French-Austrian rivalry playing out in dough. Paris, always jealous of Vienna's elegance, wasn't about to let a foreign pastry steal the show. They had to make it better, flakier, richer, French. You're sweeping when Pierre, the lanky apprentice, sidles up, whispering about a rival bakery down the street. They're boasting about their true Viennese croissants, and Lefebvre's furious. You laugh softly. Bakers fighting over pastry origins is peak Paris drama. It's like arguing over whose mom makes better soup. The croissant's evolution, you realize, is a mix of pride and innovation. You're not just kneading dough. You're part of a quiet revolution, turning a humble kipferl into a Parisian icon. The ovens are heating now, their warmth seeping into your bones, and you feel a flicker of pride. Sure, you're exhausted, but you're helping shape history, one crescent at a time. For now, you keep sweeping, dreaming of the day your croissants outshine Vienna's best. You're back in the bakery, the air now warm with the oven's growing heat, and your hands are slick with sweat as you prepare for the croissant's magic trick, butter. It's 1840 Paris, and you're about to learn the heart of what makes a croissant a croissant. Those delicate, flaky layers that'll have Parisians swooning. Monsieur Lefebvre, your master, is in a rare good mood, showing you how to layer butter into the dough like a painter with a canvas. You're nervous, one wrong move, and the dough turns into a greasy mess. The resting dough from earlier. Remember that sticky lump you kneaded half asleep? It's ready now, cool and smooth, waiting for its transformation. You wipe your hands and your apron, ready to fold your way to glory. The mainstream fact is that the croissant's flakiness comes from a technique called lamination, where butter is folded into dough multiple times to create hundreds of layers. By the 1840s, Parisian bakers were perfecting this, using rich, creamy butter to set their croissants apart from Vienna's denser kipferl. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bakers whispered that butter from Normandy cows, fed on salty coastal grass, gave croissants a subtle tang. You sniff the block of butter Lefebvre hands you, half expecting a whiff of the sea. But it's just rich and faintly sweet. Historians still argue whether specific butter regions mattered or if it was all baker bravado. You're too focused to care, staring at the butter like it's a puzzle you might fail. Lefebvre slaps the butter flat with a wooden paddle, and you wince at the sound. Loud in the quiet bakery, he shows you how to place it in the dough's center. Then fold the edges over like you're tucking in a child. Gentle but firm, he says, and you nod, trying not to fumble. You roll the dough, your arms straining to keep it even, praying the butter doesn't ooze out. It's like wrestling a living thing. And you mutter a curse under your breath when a corner tears. Lefebvre chuckles, actually chuckles, and you're so shocked you almost drop the rolling pin. Keep going, boy, he says, and you grin, feeling like you've won a tiny war. You fold, roll, and chill the dough, repeating the process 3 times, each fold multiplying the layers. Pierre, the lanky apprentice, peeks over, joking that you're courting the butter. You retort that at least the butter listens to you, unlike him, and you both laugh. The sound's soft in the flowery air. The dough's getting smoother, almost silky, and you imagine the croissant's future, golden, crisp, shattering into flakes. It's meditative, this folding, and you're lulled by the rhythm, your eyelids heavy. Outside, dawn's creeping in, painting the windows pale blue. You're exhausted, but there's a thrill in knowing you're crafting something special. The butter's the star now, and you're its humble assistant, folding history into every layer. You're out of the bakery now, the dough resting in a cool corner, and you're stepping into the lively hum of a Parisian cafe. Circa 1840. The sun's barely up, but the city's waking, and you're here to see where your croissants land, on the tables of poets, artists, and dreamers. The cafe's a cozy nook, its windows steamed from coffee pots and chatter. You weave through tables, the air thick with tobacco and the sharp tang of espresso. Your apron still dusted with flour from this morning's work. Remember that butter you folded so carefully? It's about to shine in those golden croissants, already making waves among Paris trendsetters. You're just an apprentice, but you feel a flicker of pride watching people tear into your work. The mainstream fact is that by the 1840s, Parisian cafes were cultural hubs, where intellectuals like Victor Hugo and artists like Delacroix debated over pastries and coffee. Croissants, fresh from bakers like your master Lefebvre, were becoming the breakfast of choice, their flakiness a perfect match for a quick, chic meal. Here's the quirky bit. Some cafe-goers believed eating croissants boosted creativity, claiming the butter sparked their muse. You overhear a poet at a corner table swearing his best verses came mid-bite, and you smirk, wondering if it's the pastry or the wine talking. Historians still argue whether croissants fueled Paris' artistic boom or just rode its coattails. You don't care much. You're too busy dodging a waiter with a tray of steaming cups. You pause by a table where a young woman, sketchbook open, nibbles a croissant, crumbs falling like tiny snowflakes. She's sketching the cafe's chaos, and you peek at her work, bold lines, a hint of your bakery in the background. Not bad. You mutter, and she glances up amused, offering you a crumb. You decline, joking that you're already married to the dough back at the shop. The cafe's alive with clinking spoons and laughter, and you notice how the croissant's stealing the show. It's not just food. It's a status symbol, a sign you're part of Paris' buzzing scene. You spot a dandy in a velvet coat, tearing his croissant with exaggerated care, like he's performing for the room. You roll your eyes, typical Parisian flair. Back at the counter, you overhear gossip about a rival cafe serving better croissants, and your heart sinks. Lefebvre would ever fit. You make a mental note to tell him, though you know he'll just grunt and demand more butter folds. The cafe's warmth is lulling you, the chatter blending into a soft hum, and you lean against a wall, your eyelids heavy. You're still an apprentice, but seeing your croissants here, fueling Paris' soul, makes the early mornings worth it. For now, you linger, soaking in the scene, dreaming of the day your name's on a bakery sign. You're back in the bakery, cafe's buzz still lingering in your mind as you stand at a worn wooden bench, sifting flour through a coarse sieve. It's 1840 Paris, and you are diving into the finicky science of flour, the unsung hero of the croissant's flaky perfection. The air's thick with powdery clouds, catching the morning light streaming through a grimy window. Your hands are steady now, more confident after watching your croissants shine in that cafe. But flour's tricky. One wrong choice, and your dough's a dense disaster. Monsieur Lefebvre's hovering, his eyes narrowed as you measure out sacks of grainy white powder. Remember that butter-layered dough from earlier? Its fate depends on this flour, and you're learning it's more art than science. The mainstream fact is that 19th century Parisian bakers obsessed over flour quality, sourcing it from specific mills to achieve the croissant's light, airy texture. By the 1840s, advances in milling meant finer, whiter flour was available, giving pastries a delicate crumb. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bakers swore by mixing in a pinch of chestnut flour for a nutty undertone, a secret they guarded like gold. You sneak a sniff of the flour sack, half expecting a chestnut whiff, but it's just clean and starchy. Historians still argue whether these odd flour blends were common or just eccentric experiments by desperate bakers. You're not sure, but you're careful as you pour, avoiding lumps that'd make Lefebvre scowl. You sift slowly, watching the flour drift like soft snow onto the bench. Lefebvre grumbles about city mills ruining the old ways, but you're more focused on getting the texture right. Too coarse, and the croissant's heavy. Too fine, and it's tough. You mix in water, your hand sticky as the dough forms, and you chuckle, thinking it's like wrestling a very clingy cloud. Pierre, the lanky apprentice, leans over, joking that you are flirting with the flour now. You fire back that at least flour doesn't snore like he does, and you both snicker, keeping it quiet so Lefebvre doesn't bark. The dough's coming together, smooth and pliable, and you feel a rhythm, almost soothing, as you need. You glance at the other apprentices, each wrestling their own dough, their faces dusted white like ghosts. Julien, the boastful one, claims he once mixed flour with rosewater for a fancy batch. Total nonsense, but you laugh anyway. The bakery is warm now, the oven's humming, and you're lulled by the repetitive motion of sifting and mixing. Flour's the foundation, you realize, and getting it right feels like solving a puzzle. You're not just making croissants, you're chasing perfection, one dusty handful at a time. For now, you keep sifting, the flour's soft fall blending with your steady breaths, pulling you deeper into the baker's world. You're deep in the bakery now, the flour still clinging to your hands as you shift focus to the heart of the operation. The ovens. It's 1840 Paris, and you're stoking a massive wood-fired beast, its heat washing over you like a summer wave. The dough you've been babying, with its butter layers and perfect flour, remember that chestnut flour rumor, is ready to bake, but only if you master the oven's fiery dance. The air's thick with smoke, and the sharp scent of burning oak. And your eyes sting as you shove logs into the glowing maw. Monsieur Lefebvre is watching, his arms crossed, ready to pounce if your croissants come out soggy or charred. Timing's everything, and you're learning to feel the heat like a sixth sense. The mainstream fact is that 19th century Parisian bakeries relied on wood-fired ovens, which were notoriously hard to control, requiring skill to maintain consistent heat for pastries like croissants. By the 1840s, these ovens were the backbone of every boulangerie, their domed interiors perfect for even baking. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bakers claimed they could read the oven's mood by the sound of crackling wood, swearing a high-pitched pop meant the heat was just right. You listen closely, half expecting the logs to whisper secrets. But all you hear is a steady snap. Historians still argue whether this was intuition or just baker's flair for drama. You're too busy sweating to care, adjusting the logs with a long iron poker. You slide a tray of crescent-shaped dough into the oven, the heat hitting your face like a slap. You're aiming for golden, flaky perfection. But one misstep, and it's a tray of sad, flat bread. Lefebvre taught you to watch for the butter sizzle, a faint hiss that means the layers are puffing up. You crouch by the oven door, squinting through the haze, and mutter a prayer to whatever baking gods exist. Pierre, wiping down a bench nearby, jokes that you're dancing with the devil's fireplace. You retort that at least you're not burning your fingers like he did yesterday, and you both chuckle, the sound swallowed by the oven's roar. The bakery's alive now, warm and humming, and you're in its heart. The first batch emerges, and you hold your breath as you pull the tray out. The croissants are golden, their tops glistening like tiny sunrises. You grin, feeling like you've tamed a dragon. Lefebvre nods, just a nod, but it's high praise from him. You set the tray to cool, the buttery aroma filling the air, lulling you into a calm rhythm. Your arms ache, your face is flushed, but you're starting to love this dance. The oven's heat, the crackle of wood, the slow rise of dough. It's all pulling you deeper into the croissants world, and you're ready for the next batch. You're still in the bakery, the oven's heat lingering on your skin as you wipe sweat from your brow. The golden croissants cooling nearby. It's 1840 Paris, and you're about to get a glimpse into the secretive world of bakers' guilds, where croissant recipes are guarded like royal jewels. The air's thick with the scent of fresh-baked pastry, and Monsieur Lefebvre's in a rare talkative mood, muttering about thieves from rival bakeries. You're kneading a new batch of dough. Remember those butter layers you folded so carefully? But now you're also dodging spies who'd kill for Lefebvre's croissant secrets. You glance at the door, half expecting a cloaked figure with a notebook, and chuckle at your own paranoia. The mainstream fact is that in 19th century France, bakers' guilds were powerful, controlling recipes and training to maintain quality and protect trade secrets. By the 1840s, these guilds were like exclusive clubs, with strict rules for apprentices like you. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some guild members marked their dough with secret symbols, like a tiny crescent scratch, to prove it was theirs if stolen. You sneak a peek at Lefebvre's dough, but there's no mark, just his glare, wanting you to focus. Historians still argue whether these symbols were real or just bakers' tall tales to scare off competitors. You're not sure, but you are careful as you need, keeping your hand steady. Lefebvre pulls you aside, his voice low, and tells you about the guild's oath. You're not a full member yet, just a grubby apprentice. But joining means swearing to protect the croissant's recipe. You nod, feeling like you are in some flour-dusted secret society. He shows you a ledger, its pages filled with cryptic notes on butter ratios and folding techniques. You squint, trying to memorize a line, but Lefebvre snaps it shut, muttering about nosy boys. You grin, joking that you'd rather steal a croissant than a recipe, and he actually smirks, miracle of miracles. The guild's power, you realize, isn't just in recipes. It's in trust, in knowing you're part of something bigger. You're back at the bench, rolling dough, when Pierre sidles up, whispering about a rival baker caught sneaking in last week. Tried to bribe Julien, he says, and you laugh, picturing Julien's tall tales getting him into real trouble. The bakery's quiet now, save for the creak of wood and the faint crackle of cooling croissants. You're lulled by the rhythm of rolling, the dough soft under your hands, But the guild's secrecy adds a thrill. You're not just baking, you're guarding a legacy. For now, you keep your head down, folding dough and dreaming of the day you'll earn your own guild mark. You're out of the bakery's warm cocoon now, stepping into the crisp dawn of 1840 Paris. A tray of fresh croissants balanced in your arms. The city's waking up, and you're headed to the night market, where bakers like you hawk their wares to early risers and late-night stragglers. The cobblestones are slick with dew, and your breath puffs in the chilly air as you weave through stalls piled with cabbages and fish. The croissants, still warm from the oven, remember that fiery dance you mastered, are your ticket to a few extra coins. But you've got to haggle like a pro. The market's a chaotic symphony of shouts and clinking coins, and you're diving right in, apron and all. The mainstream fact is that 19th century Parisian markets were bustling hubs, where bakers sold directly to customers, often competing fiercely for sales. By the 1840s, croissants were starting to appear alongside rustic loaves, their buttery scent drawing crowds. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bakers tossed in free croissants to charm regular buyers, a trick called the baker's wink. You try it, offering a small crescent to a grizzled fishmonger, who grunts but takes it. Historians still argue whether this was savvy marketing or just bakers clearing stale stock. You're too busy scanning the crowd to care, your eyes darting for anyone with a hungry look. You set up at a rickety stall, the croissants gleaming under a lantern's glow. A woman in a bonnet eyes your tray, asking if they're real Parisian, and you nod, channeling Lefebvre's pride. You quote a price, a bit high, and she haggles, her voice sharp. You counter, joking that these croissants are worth more than her hat, and she laughs, tossing you a coin. Pierre, who's manning a nearby stall, shouts that you're a croissant artist, and you fire back that he's just jealous of your charm. The banter keeps you awake, though the market's rhythm, shouts, footsteps, the clink of coins, is oddly soothing, like a lullaby for hustlers. You sell a few more, each warm crescent disappearing into a basket or a quick bite. A street kid lingers, eyeing your tray, and you slip him a broken one, remembering your own hungry days. The market's winding down now, the sky turning pale pink, and you're bone-tired, your tray nearly empty. You count your coins, feeling a small thrill. They'll help pay for more flour, more butter, more layers. You're not just an apprentice anymore. You're part of Paris' pulse, selling the city's newest obsession. For now, you shoulder your empty tray, the market's hum fading as you head back, dreaming of a quick nap before the ovens call again. You're trudging back from the market, coins jingling in your pocket, the empty croissant tray light on your shoulder. It's 1840 Paris, and the city's fully awake now. The morning sun glinting off shop windows as you pass elegant cafes. You're catching your breath, but there's no rest yet. The croissant's becoming a fashionable breakfast craze, and you are seeing it everywhere. Remember those golden crescents you sold at dawn? They're not just food anymore. They're a status symbol, gracing the tables of Paris elite. You pause outside a chic cafe, its patio buzzing with well-dressed Parisians, and watch them nibble croissants with dainty forks, like they're dining with royalty. The mainstream fact is that by the mid-1840s, croissants were a staple in upscale Parisian cafes, their flaky texture making them a favorite among the bourgeoisie. They were the perfect light breakfast, paired with coffee or chocolate, signaling sophistication. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some trendsetters spread their croissants with orange marmalade, claiming it was the only civilized way to eat them. You smirk, imagining Lefebvre's horror at anything but plain butter. Historians still argue whether this marmalade fad was a genuine trend or just a quirk of a few eccentric nobles. You're too busy gawking at a lady in a silk dress, her croissant crumbling as she gestures wildly in conversation. You slip closer, blending into the cafe's edge, your apron marking you as an outsider. The patrons are a mix of poets, merchants, and dandies, all treating the croissant like a delicate jewel. One man, sporting a monocle, holds his up to the light, inspecting it like a gemstone, and you stifle a laugh. Only in Paris. You mutter to yourself that he'd faint if he saw the sweaty chaos of your bakery's ovens. Across the patio, a young artist sketches while munching, crumbs dotting his sketchbook. You're tempted to tell him those flakes came from your hands, but you hold back, feeling a quiet pride instead. The croissant's rise, you realize, is about more than taste. It's a lifestyle, a morning ritual for Paris' fashionable set. Pierre catches up, his own tray sold out, and nudges you, joking that you're spying to steal cafe secrets. You retort that you're just making sure they're eating your croissants right, and you both chuckle. Your voice is soft in the morning bustle. The cafe's clatter, clinking cups, murmur gossip, lulls you, and your eyelids droop despite the excitement. You're exhausted, but seeing your work on these tables, transforming breakfast into art, keeps you going. You turn back toward the bakery, the croissant's new status sinking in. It's not just dough and butter anymore. It's Paris, darling, and you're helping make it shine. You're back in the bakery, the morning's cafe glamour fading as you face a new challenge. Competition. It's 1840 Paris, and the croissant's rise has sparked a pastry war, with rival bakers pushing brioche and pain au chocolate to steal your thunder. The air's thick with flour and tension, and you're kneading a fresh batch of dough. Remember those careful butter folds, while Monsieur Lefebvre grumbles about upstart bakeries down the street. Your croissants are the talk of the town, but you're not alone in this game, and every baker's fighting for a slice of Paris breakfast craze. You wipe sweat from your brow, feeling the pressure to keep your croissants king. The mainstream fact is that by the 1840s, Parisian bakeries were diversifying, offering pastries like brioche and pain au chocolate alongside croissants, creating fierce competition. Customers loved a variety, but bakers like Lefebvre saw it as a threat to their craft. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some rival bakers sprinkled sugar on their croissants, calling it a sweet twist to lure dessert lovers. You grimace, imagining Lefebvre's rage at such a betrayal of buttery purity. Historians still argue whether these sugary croissants were a bold innovation or a desperate gimmick. You're too busy dodging Lefebvre's glare to care, your hands deep in dough. Try to keep up. You're rolling out a new batch when Pierre bursts in, breathless, with gossip from the market. A nearby bakery's pain au chocolate, stuffed with dark chocolate, is drawing crowds, and their brioche is fluffier than a cloud. They're saying it's better than ours. He whispers, and you scoff, but your stomach twists. You joke that their brioche probably tastes like sawdust, but Pierre's not laughing. He's worried. You keep rolling, the dough's smooth under your palms, and picture those rival pastries, golden and tempting. Lefebvre's muttering about sticking to tradition, but you wonder if you should experiment. Maybe sneak in a hint of vanilla. You shake off the thought. Lefebvre'd have your hide. The bakery's quieter now, the oven some blending with your steady breaths. You glance at Julien, the boastful apprentice, who's bragging about accidentally tasting a rival's brioche. Not bad, he says, and you roll your eyes, muttering that he'd eat a shoe if it was free. The competition's real, though, and you feel it in the air, sharp as the knife you use to shape crescents. Your croissants are still the star, but you're learning that Paris demands perfection and loyalty. For now, you focus on the dough, its rhythm calming your nerves, and dream of outbaking those rivals, one flaky layer at a time. You're back in the bakery, the dough under your hands, still carrying the weight of those rival pastries you heard about. It's 1840 Paris, and while your croissants are winning hearts, the bakery's not exactly a beacon of cleanliness. You're scrubbing a flour cake bench, dodging grime and the occasional mouse, as you navigate the gritty reality of a 19th century kitchen. The air's heavy with yeast and smoke, and Monsieur Lefebvre's barking orders, oblivious to the dirt underfoot. Those golden croissants, remember the buttery layers you folded, are a miracle in this chaos, and you're learning how bakers kept standards high despite the mess. The mainstream fact is that sanitation in 1840s Parisian bakeries was rudimentary, with open sewers and unwashed tools common. Yet bakers still produced delicate pastries, like croissants. Hygiene laws were barely enforced, and customers rarely saw the back rooms. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bakers hung lavender bundles near ovens, believing the scent warded off bad airs that spoiled dough. You spot a wilted sprig by the window and smirk, wondering if it's fighting a losing battle against the bakery's funk. Historians still argue whether these herbs helped or were just a superstitious charm. You're too busy scrubbing to care, your arms aching as you wrestle a stubborn stain. You glance around, noticing the grime on the walls, the flour dust coating everything like a second skin. Lefebvre insists the oven's heat burns away any filth, but you're skeptical, wiping down a tray that's seen better days. You joke to yourself that the mice are your unofficial taste testers, scurrying off with crumbs. Pierre, hauling a sack of flour, overhears and laughs, saying you should charge them for the privilege. You retort that they'd pay in squeaks, and you both chuckle. The sound soft against the oven's hum. Despite the dirt, the croissants keep coming out perfect, their flakes crisp and golden, a testament to skill over sanitation. You're shaping a new batch now, cutting dough into triangles, your hands steady despite the chaos. The bakery's a mess, but there's a strange rhythm to it. The creak of the floor, the crackle of wood, the faint lavender scent. You're lulled by the motion, your eyelids heavy, but you're proud of those croissants shining through the grime. Paris doesn't see this side, the sweat and dirt behind the glamour, but you're part of it, crafting beauty in a rough world. For now, you keep shaping. The dough's cool touch grounding you as you dream of cleaner days and flakier crescents. You're still in the gritty bakery, the faint lavender scent from those mouse-chasing bundles barely cutting through the flour dust. It's 1840 Paris, and you are shaping croissant dough. But your attention's caught by a new figure in the kitchen. Women bakers, quietly reshaping the croissant's world. They're not apprentices like you, but wives, daughters, or widows working in the shadows of men like Monsieur Lefebvre. The ovens hum, and you're rolling dough. Remember those perfect triangles you cut? While watching these women knead and shape, with a skill that rivals your master's. They're the unsung heroes, and you're starting to notice their steady hands in this buttery revolution. The mainstream fact is that women in 19th century Parisian bakeries often work behind the scenes, handling dough or managing sales, though they rarely got credit. By the 1840s, some widows even ran bakeries, keeping croissant recipes alive. Here's the quirky tidbit. A few female bakers were rumored to add a pinch of honey to their dough, giving croissants a subtle sweetness that customers raved about. You eye a woman named Claire, Lefebvre's sister, as she sprinkles something into her mix, but she just winks, keeping her secret. Historians still argue whether these women influenced croissant recipes, or were just filling gaps left by men. You're too busy watching Claire's deft hands to care, her fingers moving like a dancer's. Claire's shaping croissants faster than you, her crescents neat and uniform, and you're a bit jealous. You mutter a joke about her being a dough wizard, and she laughs, saying you're still wrestling your dough like it's a wild horse. You grin, admitting she's got a point, and try to mimic her technique, folding with more grace. The bakery's quieter now, the men focused on ovens, while women like Claire keep the rhythm going. You notice another woman, a widow named Elise, tallying sales by candlelight, her ledger as meticulous as her pastries. You tempted to ask about that honey rumor, but Lefebvre's nearby, and you don't want to lecture. The dough's cool under your palms, and you're lulled by the repetitive folding, the soft chatter of the women blending with the oven's crackle. You realize they're the backbone here, their work making your croissants possible. Paris might not sing their praises, but you see it, their quiet skill, their subtle tweaks, turning crescents into art. You joke to Pierre, who's hauling wood, that Claire's croissants could outshine Lefebvre's. He snorts, saying you're brave to say it out loud. For now, you keep shaping, the women's steady presence grounding you, their hands weaving a legacy you're proud to share. You're back in the bakery, the rhythm of shaping croissants with Claire and the other women still fresh in your mind, their honey-tinged secrets lingering like a sweet afterthought. It's 1840 Paris, but your world's expanding. Stories are trickling in about croissants popping up beyond France's borders. You're kneading a new batch of dough. Those buttery layers you've mastered are second nature now, and overhearing tales from travelers and merchants who've stopped by the bakery. The air's warm with oven heat, and you're catching whispers of your golden crescents, charming tables in London, Vienna, even across the Atlantic. You're just an apprentice, but it feels like your croissants are going global. The mainstream fact is that by the late 1840s, the croissant's popularity was spreading, carried by French bakers emigrating to cities like London and New York, where cafes adopted it as a chic breakfast item. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some British bakers tried renaming croissants crescent rolls to sound less French, hoping to dodge anti-French sentiment. You chuckle, imagining Lefebvre's scowl at such a betrayal of his precious pastry's name. Historians still argue whether this renaming caught on or was just a fleeting marketing flop. You're too busy roll and go to care, but the idea of your croissants in foreign lands sparks a quiet thrill. A merchant, his coat dusted with road dirt, leans against the counter, munching a croissant and spinning a tale about seeing one in a London Tyrrell. They butchered it. He grumbles. Too doughy. You nod, hiding a grin, and joke that they probably forgot the butter, cardinal sin. He laughs, crumbs falling, and you feel a flicker of pride knowing Paris still sets the standard. Back at your bench, you fold dough with extra care, picturing it crossing oceans. Pierre, stacking trays nearby, overhears and teases that you're dreaming of croissant conquest. You retort that at least your dreams don't involve snoring like his, and you both snicker. The sound soft in the bakery's hum. The ovens crackle, and you're lulled by the familiar rhythm of rolling and folding. The dough cool and pliable. You imagine your croissants on a New York breakfast table, maybe paired with some strange American jam. The thoughts oddly calming, like your work's reaching places you'll never see. Lefebvre barks at you to focus, but you're already lost in emotion. The stories of far-off croissants blending with the bakery's warmth. You're not just baking now. You're part of something bigger, a flaky legacy spreading far beyond Paris cobblestones. You're still in the bakery. The tales of croissants conquering distant cities, fading into the warm, flowery air. It's 1840 Paris, and you're shaping your final batch of dough for the day. Those buttery layers, remember the Normandy tang you sniffed. Now second nature under your hands. The oven hums softly, and you're reflecting on the croissant's lasting charm. How it's become more than just a pastry. The bakery's quieter now, the other apprentice has gone home, and it's just you, Monsieur Lefebvre, and the lingering scent of golden crescents. You're tired, your arms heavy, but there's a calm pride in knowing you've helped craft something timeless. The mainstream fact is that by the 1840s, the croissant was cementing its place as a Parisian icon, its recipe refined to the flaky perfection we know today. It wasn't just food, it was a symbol of French finesse, enduring through wars and revolutions. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bakers believe croissants baked on foggy mornings tasted better, claiming the mist softened the dough. You glance out the window, where Paris is cloaked in a gentle haze, and smirk, wondering if today's batch will prove them right. Historians still argue whether this was baker's lore or a real quirk of humidity. You're too lost in the dough's rhythm to care, your hands folding crescents with a sleepy grace. You shape the last croissant, its curves smooth and perfect, and slide the tray into the oven. Lefebvre nods, a rare sign of approval, and you feel like you've earned a medal. You lean against the bench, watching the dough rise through the oven's glow, and think about the journey. Those Viennese roots, the cafe buzz, Claire's honeyed secrets. Pierre would probably joke that you're getting sappy, but he's not here, and you're content in the quiet. You murmur to yourself that these croissants might outlive you all, a thought as comforting as the bakery's warmth. The world's changing, but the croissant's charm, its crisp flakes, its buttery heart, feels eternal. You pull the tray out, the croissants golden and fragrant, and set them to cool. The bakery's stillness wraps around you. The only sound are steady breaths and the faint creak of the floor. You're part of something bigger, a legacy of flour and fire, and it's enough to carry you through another dawn. For now, you tidy the bench, the dough's memory lingering on your hands, and let the day's work settle into your bones. The world of the bakery fades now. The oven's glow dimming as you sink deeper into your pillow. You're no longer kneading dough or dodging Lefebvre's gruff orders. You're drifting, the scent of warm croissants softening into a distant dream. Picture a quiet Parisian morning, the city still asleep. A single crescent moon hanging low above the Seine. Each breath you take is slower, heavier, pulling you further from the cobblestones and flour dust. The croissant story, its layers, its journey, wraps around you like a soft blanket, reassuring you that some things endure, steady and golden. Let the bakery's hum become a gentle wave, rocking you toward rest. Your eyelids are heavy, your thoughts blurring into the mist of that foggy Paris dawn. Sleep's waiting, warm and inviting, ready to carry you through the night. Drift now, let go, and rest easy in the glow of those perfect, flaky crescents.